Just some caution when working with dates. And this is not just for SQL and databases. In general, dates are a little tricky to work with. We already experienced that we couldn't average a date, for example. And there's other things like this where you can't do what you want to do with it unless you do some sort of conversion or something. So I'm going to go through a tiny bit about dates, but there's a whole lot more, and different circumstances are going to require different type of work. But just be a little careful when you start doing calculations with dates and timestamps. So we're going to create two tables here. We're going to create a date tester, and I'm going to create another table I'm going to call date tester date. Not very good names, but that's what I came up with. So here I'm going to have an order date and a delivery date that are as timestamps. And timestamps include both the date component and a time component. In the date tester, the order date and the delivery date are instead just going to be dates. So we have no time component here. They're just simply the year, month, and days. I'm then going to go ahead and insert some values into these two tables. So here I'm going to insert some sort of identifier field here, and then some different dates here. And then I'm going to also insert some values into the dates. And notice here that there's no timestamp for these values right here. All right, and then if we use from the date tester here, we're going to do order date minus delivery date. Let's do without an average first here, and just look at what that looks like. I'm not going to group that one. I'm going to do this. So notice here I'm outputting something that looks a little bit odd here. Well, this is a interval, and what this is saying that I have 1 day here. This is saying 3 days, so there's 1 day between these two dates. And if you look at them, this is 0 dates and 0 seconds. There's no difference between these two at all. Between these two, it's exactly 1 day. So it's 623, 622, and the hours and minutes and seconds are the same. Here we have exactly 3 days in between. Here, though, we have a bunch more things going on. Now we have 19H, so we have 19 hours, 10 minutes, and 25 seconds. All right, so that's when I'm comparing two timestamps, I'm getting an interval delivered out of that. Let's see what we get if we do the same thing, but from the date tester underscore date. When I do with this one, it's an S2 dates. So when I run this one, I don't want to group by it. Now I'm getting a number. So when I'm comparing two dates, I'm getting an integer value, which indicates how many days are between these. And notice here that these are whole values, and that's simply because I have nothing smaller than a day here, so I can actually compare them this way, which is quite convenient at times. All right, so let's go ahead and then try to average these and see what happens. Clearly doing an average on this last one that we created will work because these are integers, so that should be no problem. So if I store the data as a date, I'm going to get an integer when I do a comparison between two, and I should be able to simply do some sort of normal calculation on that. All right, so that worked quite nice. Let's see what this happens here. That also actually worked. I got some values back, but again, I'm getting it in this interval type thing. So let's see here. I had here are 19 hours, 10 minutes, and 25 seconds. So this is a date time interval right here. All right, let's then say that I want to go ahead and get these values not as days, because I had those decimals and it's kind of hard to talk about days as in decimals. So I'm going to convert this to hours, and that's quite simple. If that's a day, I can simply multiply by 24, and if I do that, I'm going to get this in hours instead. And then, okay, I don't maybe want this many decimals on here. Let's say I want to get rid of those decimals here. So what I need to do is I need to do a rounding here. And now I was able to round that. So that was quite simple to work with overall. All right, let's see how it works with the other one I had here. Let's see here, if I ran this average, I did get some sort of average. And let's say I want this to be rounded to. So I want to round this to 2 decimals. There are no decimals, so that might be a little hint that this is probably not going to work. So here I'm getting an error message saying that the function round doesn't exist that takes an interval value and then rounds that. So I can't round an interval value basically. So here now we're back to this whole thing where we need to extract the epoch or epoch out of this order date and the delivery date. And I believe I can simply do the epoch around the whole thing here. So I can do extract epoch or epoch. Epoch I think is British, epoch I think is American English. And then let's see. So now I extracted it from here and I closed that one out. So I got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, but then this should be on the outside of it, right there. Let's see if this works. Okay, now it says the function round doesn't exist for double precision integer. So I can't round a double number. So I now need to cast this to numeric. So I do a double colon and then type numeric, and then we'll try it. And now it works. So now I have the number of seconds here, but I probably don't want the number of seconds. So I'm going to go ahead, before I round it, I'm going to go ahead and divide by 60 and then another 60 to get it into hours. And now I get the number of hours that are the difference between those dates. So as you can see, there's ways of working around things. A lot of times that involves using Epic, because that counts the number of seconds, and the number of seconds is something we can handle and do calculations with. But then if you want a percentage, you have to convert it back into some sort of hours or days. But there's a bunch of different calculations that are needed typically. So just be careful when you work with dates.